hate getting turned on in public.
It's your pack.
It's my pack? Oh, I turned myself off there? Oh, there we go. I had to turn myself on in public. That's even better. Nice. Nice. How are we doing so far? It's your first day here, right? You coming back? Yeah, I'm not even started yet. All right, so hi. Good morning, everybody. So how many of you are science and spirituality geeks like I am? Yeah, we're just going to geek right out today. So for those of you who aren't, I don't know, go have a cup of coffee or something, because it's just going to be great. I'm going to start with a wonderful quote. Actually, I think my favorite quote by Albert Einstein, and maybe some of you have heard it before. Albert Einstein once penned, "I want to know the mind of God. Everything else is just the details." I want to know the mind of God. Everything else is just the details. And, you know, when I first read that, I was so struck by it. I was like, wow, everything else? Like your career and your family and your house and your 401k and, you know, all these things that we get all like in, you know, who's president of the United States, you know, the things that we like keep us up at night, right? It's like, that's all the details, right? And then I like to think to myself, I like to think like, so what was Einstein doing when he penned that phrase? Was he sitting in some dark corner of the Princeton library, you know, going over the theory of and the formulas of relativity? And in a moment of utter frustration, he just kind of threw it all up and said, "I just want to know the mind of God. Everything else is just the details." Or was he perhaps walking along the Jersey Shore at sunrise and seeing the glimmer of light coming across the ocean and the way the waves were coming and the smell of the salt air, and taken with awe and said, "I just want to know the mind of God. Everything else is just the details." It's a powerful thought, isn't it? And I also wonder, like, what came first for Einstein? Was it his thirst for having a coherent understanding of the universe and his wanting to understand and write the theory of relativity? Was it that passion and that pursuit that had him go and want to know the mind of God? Or did he want to know the mind of God, and therefore he needed to study a coherent understanding of the universe? Which came first? Fascinating, isn't it? But either way, what we know from studying Einstein and all his philosophies and his science is that he was using his mind in an incredible way, wasn't he? Which, of course, brings me back to me and then to you. And I ask you this: how are you using your mind? We were getting along just fine till then, weren't we? Maybe you're like, well, what do you mean, how am I using my mind, Jackie? I don't know, I just have my mind. That's like saying, how are you using your vision? I don't know, I just have my vision. How am I using my hearing? I don't know, I just have hearing. We have all of these amazing faculties and capacities as human beings, don't we? But do we really think about, how am I using my mind? And maybe you've even gone so far as to say, well, I don't know, I can't help it, it's just the way I think. I can't help it, it's just the way I think. Anyone want to admit to being guilty of that one other than me? I can't help it, that's just the way I feel. Yeah. I don't know if it's the good news or the bad news, but today science has advanced far enough that we know that that's just not true. We can help how we think, we can help how we feel, and in fact, I believe we must. That if we have any commitment at all to a process of spiritual evolution, it is our spiritual duty to use our mind in a particular way, to use our mind in service of our spiritual growth and development, to use our mind to connect with the one mind that God is. See, maybe you even have to back up a little bit right there. Who and what do you say God is? The one power, the one presence, God the good, omnipotent. There's no spot where God is not. My own personal definition is God is the animating life force energy of the universe. In you, in me, So we have to be willing to surrender this notion that God is some white man with a beard and a cloud, drawing strings and making judgments. And that's so embedded in our theology, and thank God for unity, where we have the opportunity to know that God is in us, as us, and through us. And this matrix of consciousness, of energy that God is, the wholeness of divinity, all the way down to the wholeness of our humanity, and all of these energetic places in between that we can connect and live. Yes? So my hope is to show you today in this talk that, in fact, you can and you must learn to use your mind to train your brain to live in the oneness with God. How cool is that, right? Because mind doesn't just live in the brain, by the way, although changing your neurological pathways will give you a different experience of life. We're going to talk about that. But there's intelligence in every cell of your body. A stomach cell knows that it's a stomach cell, and a fingernail cell knows that it's a fingernail cell. There is so much intelligence in the body, in the heart. It's not just in the brain. So I'm going to first look at some things in wisdom tradition, and then a little bit in science, and then kind of pull it all together with some stories. So let's first, in A Course in Miracles, there's a wonderful quote that says, "You think you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think." How many of you think that? Really think about that. You think you're responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. Anyone? Right? And then it goes on to say, the truth is, you are responsible for what you think, because it is only at that level that we can occupy choice. What you do stems from what you think. Powerful, isn't it? What you do stems from what you think. And then from the biblical tradition, Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Now that's an interesting passage, isn't it? As a man thinks in his heart. We don't really think about thinking with the heart, do we? We think about thinking as a function of the mind, a function of the brain. But the Bible says in Proverbs, as a man thinks with his heart. And do you know what science tells us about the heart? I'm sure you all do, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because otherwise I wouldn't know where to go next with my talk. What science tells us about the heart is that the electromagnetic energy of the heart, the vibratory pattern of the heart, is how much? 5,000 times stronger than the electromagnetic energy of the brain. So when you put these two together in heart-mind coherence and you start literally vibrating at a coherent level, your life begins to change dramatically. But we have to understand that that's what we're here to do. As one thinks with one's heart, so is he. Bringing the mind and heart into coherence. Powerful, powerful stuff. So this is what we are here to do, understanding all of these tenets. In fact, in Buddhism, do you know that Buddha had 84,000 precepts that were written about disciplining and training the mind? 84,000 precepts about training the mind. And one of them says that it is the disciplined mind that leads to happiness and freedom from suffering. Our mind, the intelligence of our being, is our connection with the cosmic mind. They are, in fact, one and the same. But it doesn't feel like that when we're steeped in the concerns and the fears in our human experience. So science has been telling us lots of really interesting things. The 1948 Framingham Heart Study. In 1948, we learned this, and what it showed is women who believed that they were susceptible to heart conditions got heart disease twice as often as people who did not believe they were susceptible for it, even when they did not have risk factors, risk behaviors, or risk factors for the disease. They were twice as likely to get it. What does that tell you? Mind becomes matter. What you believe becomes matter. In Matthew, Matthew chapter 9, it says, according to your faith, it is done to you. What you believe will manifest into your experience in life. Now, look, it doesn't mean that every bad thing that happens to you is like, oh, it's my fault. No, it's not your fault. It just means that you've created the energetic conditions for that to occur. And if you've created the energetic conditions for that to occur, you can create the energetic conditions for it to disappear. Right? So science has shown us that if you believe that you have an illness, the illness is more likely to manifest. Doesn't mean it will. It's more likely to manifest. Then in 2011, I love this study, the study of AIDS patients. What they found is that the AIDS patients that believed in a harsh, punitive God had 3 times more of the AIDS virus in their blood than those who believed in a loving, benevolent God. Mind becomes matter. What you believe manifests in your world. This is what I'm going to spend the workshop talking about, is like, okay, so, but I do believe that, now what? You can learn to train your brain. So going back to science, you've all heard of the placebo effect, yes? That when someone believes that a treatment is going to be helpful to them, more than 50% of the time, it is helpful to them, even when it's not a treatment. It helps. It helps you get better. But do you also know the nocebo effect? The nocebo effect means that when you believe a treatment is going to be harmful to you, most often it doesn't help or can even make your symptoms worse, even when it's not a treatment. It's crazy. What your mind does and can do is unbelievable. It is the new frontier of what you have to understand, not only in your human experience, but in your spiritual experience. Your mind is the direct link, the direct cosmic link to the cosmic universe. Do you know that if the universe were just like 1 millionth of a millimeter off of its course, that all the planets would just go spiraling around in the air? It's amazing how intricate it is in this world. But research can be a little bit dry and boring, so let's look at some people's lives. So how many of you know the story of Amy Purdy? She was, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. Amy Purdy back in 1999 was a world-class snowboarder, and on just a random fluke tragedy, really, she was taken very ill with meningitis. As a young woman, she was 20 years old, and was rushed to the hospital in a coma and was only given 2% chance of survival back in 1999. And she did survive. She came to, a few days or weeks later from the coma to find that her lower legs had been amputated. The ravaging of the meningitis in her system required that her legs be amputated. So of course she was just completely, devastated by what happened to her. And yet when she came to and realized that this was now her new experience, her new life, she decided that she was going to learn to walk she learned to walk and learn to run on prosthetic legs. And then she said, but I'm a snowboarder. I'm a snowboarder. I've got to snowboard. And so she tried snowboarding. And what she found is that there were no prosthetic legs that would fit into snowboarding boots. So she made some. With no engineering background, with no degree in prosthetic sciences, she worked with a team of mechanical engineers and literally created snowboarding legs so that she could be a snowboarder. And she says in her wonderful TED Talk, if you want to see this, that the whole time that she was recovering from this and learning how to walk again, learning how to run again, making these prosthetic legs that would fit in her boots, and then it wasn't like she got up on her new legs and just went whooshing down the mountain. She had to learn to snowboard all over again. What she says in her TED Talk is that every night before she'd go to sleep, she would lay in bed, and what she would do is she would be snowboarding. Not thinking she was snowboarding, she would actually be snowboarding. She would feel the tension in her muscles. She'd feel the sun on her face and the wind in her hair. She would feel each curve going down the mountain. She said, I was actually snowboarding. Charles Fillmore taught about this exact principle 115 years ago when he taught about the spiritual powers that we have in unity. And he talked about the spiritual power of imagination. That when we use our mind, how are you using your mind? When we use our mind to see the outcome that we want to see, we can produce the outcome that's in our mind, in our creative capacity. Mind becomes matter. So in 2014, Amy Purdy won a bronze medal at the World Paralympic Games as a snowboarder. And she says that she knew that she would do that because it wasn't like she hadn't had the experience. She'd already had the experience, despite what other people said, and you won't be able to do this, and it won't be able, how are you going to be able to snowboard again? You've lost your legs. It says in Romans 12:2, do not be conformed of the world, but be transformed in your mind. Be transformed in your mind newly. So what does that mean? Do you know that the Greek root of the word transformation is metaphormia, which means to change the outer conditions based on an inward change. Changing your inner condition so that your outer experience changes. What did Amy do? She saw herself in a new inner condition. Now, did she grow new legs? No. Did she have the experience in her mind that she wanted to have? Yes. How are you using your mind? When you use your mind racked in worry and frustration and upset and lack and limitation and denying your good, that is where you are connecting to divine mind. That's how you're using your mind versus, well, what do I want to have happen? What do I want to create here? What experience do I want to have? And then training your mind to see that outcome. How are you using your mind? I want to know the mind of God. Everything else is just the details. And then my new favorite sports crush, 33-year-old Alex Honnold. Any of you followed him yet? Oh my God, amazing, isn't it? Crazy, one person, that's cool, I'll just talk to you. So Alex Honnold, for those of you who, he's in a little bit of a fringe sport. So Alex Honnold is a rock climber. He's been rock climbing, he's 34 now. He did this amazing feat that I'm about to tell you about when he was 33. And he started climbing when oh yeah, dude, there he is. Cool, I forgot about that. Thank you. So that's him hanging on a 3,000-foot slab of granite. Is there another, do you have another one up there? Oh, they're kind of hard to see. Too bad. That red dot is him from someone shooting down. So Alex Honnold is a rock climber, and he got, I don't know, about 10 years ago, he got the notion that he wanted to free climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. And El Capitan is a 3,000-foot slab, sheer slab of granite. It's not a mountain, but it's just this enormous rock. And it's kind of the creme de la creme of rock climbing. For most rock climbers to climb it at all, it takes about a day and a half with ropes. And Alex is a free climber, and free climbing means that you climb without ropes. So he had done a lot of climbs as a free climber, and he spent 10 years training to free climb El Capitan. 10 years. And there's one part of that climb where he has two options of how to kind of keep himself moving up. The one option is that he's holding just by his fingertips, and he has to shoot his leg out. I'm not going to show you because I'll look really ridiculous doing that, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. All right, so I know, right? I wish I could. All right, so he has to shoot his one leg out literally perpendicular to his hip. So like the legs, okay, look, here it is, here it is, here it is, there it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, wait, but then he's got to like move the rest of his body over there. And he's like hanging by this one, and moves over. I know, right? And he's, at that point, 1,500 feet up in the air. Crazy. The other option to not do that move is to do this thing that's called a two-handed release. You can imagine where that one goes. Where he literally like briefly hops off the rock and then grabs back on with his feet and hands. And because that he felt was too treacherous at 1,500 feet up in the air, he went with this one. Yeah. So that move alone, that one move of these 3,000 feet, which of that move he moved about 4 inches, that one move, he spent 90 hours seeing himself do that one move. How are you using your mind? Right? I'm glad you laughed at that. Not as good as he is, yeah. It's astounding, isn't it? Now, he spent 90 hours seeing that one move because if he didn't land it, he's dead. So brain researchers got very interested in Alex Honnold. And so they asked him, can we do an MRI of you to see, like, what is it with your brain? Oh, by the way, end of the story. He did it. He lived. And a bunch of people made a documentary about it called Free Solo in local theaters as we speak. Yeah, definitely go see it. I'm going to see it this week in DC. Free Solo. Amazing, amazing, amazing documentary. Anyway, so these researchers got very interested in what is it with your brain that allows you to do this feat that most people would just be so terrified of. So sure enough, they did an MRI of Alex, and what they found is that his amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain where you feel fear, his amygdala is actually smaller than most adult amygdalas. And the researchers were like, well, there you go, that proves it, that's why you're able to do that. To which Alex just laughed and said, no, my amygdala is smaller because of what I do. Mind created matter. Research absolutely shows, without a question, that when you use your mind, meaning your higher consciousness self, your observing self, the self that's able to be quiet in meditation and observe when you're about to lose your crap and you decide not to anyway, your observing mind, when you use that mind, you literally change the neurological connections in your brain. You can reduce reactivity, you can increase joy and happiness and contentment, but you have to know that you are using your mind to train your brain. And that your mind isn't even your mind. Your mind isn't your mind. Your mind is the mind. When you start thinking through that lens of not my mind, because you know what your mind's going to do, right? Yummy, 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 yummy. Or is that just my mind? Yours is like that too? Yeah. You're seeing me. Thanks, Amanda. Right? So when you start using the mind rather than your mind, you are going to create an extraordinarily different life. And together, we can create an extraordinarily different world. Alex Honnold changed the structure of his brain because of the way he thought, what he did. Remember the quote from A Course in Miracles? You think that you're responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is you're responsible for what you think because it's from what you think that all behavior, all actions stem. So he used his mind in a particular way that led to his particular actions, that led to a particular experience in life. What if we all did that? What if we all used our mind in that particular way, toward love, toward unity, toward oneness? My opening prayer today, oneness for all people. I want to invite all faith traditions, including those that say mean things about us, so that we're creating that oneness. How are you using your mind? So I'm passionate about these theories because, not only because I'm passionate about spiritual growth and evolution, but they've also saved my life. Recovering from my own long history of depression and relapses of addiction, what changed my life was devoting myself, being born again, if you will, into the realization that if I keep thinking the way I'm thinking, I'm going to keep creating what I've been experiencing over and over and over, and asking why I feel this way is never going to get me out of that spiral. And I was a therapist for 30 years. I got really good at doing that. And I remember one night sitting on the couch with my spouse, and I was crying, and she's like trying to be supportive, and she really wanted to kill me. I'd had another addictive relapse, and it was hurting her and the family, and now we had a baby. I called my friend Marianne in New York because I knew she was the one person that would say, knock that shit off. That's what you want in your life, are people who see your greatness, who see your love, who see your compassion, who see your possibility and say, knock that shit off. You're bigger than that. See your God self. Don't think with that mind. That mind is going to take you right down that rabbit hole. right down that rabbit hole of addiction, right down that rabbit hole of anxiety, right down that rabbit hole of depression. And that's not to say they're not illnesses, they are, but your mind can train your brain. No matter what it is in your life right now, you can recover from it. How do I know? Because I've recovered from all of it. And I'm still here standing, baby. I love you guys. So good to be home. Use your mind, God's mind, to train your brain to create a different experience in life, to create oneness, to create unity, to create love, to create a world that works for all of us. Let's take that into meditation, shall we? I'm going to lead us in a meditation called a heart-mind coherence meditation that I hope that you will continue to use after today. So if you're comfortable doing so, I invite you to close your outer eyes so that your inner eyes may open. Remove anything perhaps from your lap that might encumber you, and let's just begin this meditation with the breath. Take a deep centering breath. Allow the breath to sink deeply down into your solar plexus and release. And now for a few breaths, I want to invite you to breathe literally through your heart. Breathing in through, and you're just using your imagination, spiritual power of imagination, breathing in through your heart and allowing the air, the spirit, to come in through the heart area and fill your lungs. Take a deep breath together through the heart and release. And again through the heart. Breathing in through the heart. And as you continue this breathing in through your heart chakra, just allow yourself to visualize your mind as just one beautiful, empty, glowing, warm space, but just emptied out and hollow. No cares, no concerns, no worries, just empty field of infinite possibility in your mind. The area behind your eyes, filling that cavity, just infinite possibility. Breathing in through the heart. Now, as you're breathing in through the heart, I invite you to see this energy this energetic field that we're in together, breathing in through the heart up to the third eye chakra, which is between your two physical eyes. So up through the chest, and in an infinity symbol coming back down to the heart. Breathing in through the heart, crossing over at the throat chakra, enveloping the third eye, and back to the heart chakra. Breathing in. Feeling the softness behind your eyes, relaxation in your forehead, the openness in your heart. Continue this breathing pattern. Breathing in through the heart, up to the third eye, swirling back down to the heart. And once you feel that you've reached coherence, just a steady energy between your mind and your heart, I invite you to just drop a care, a concern, a prayer into that field of infinite possibility. Prayer for a loved one, a prayer for a condition in your own life, a prayer for the answer to something that's been challenging you. Just drop it in, this energy field between your head and your heart, your mind, breathing in through the heart, crossing over at the throat chakra, around the third eye, back to your heart. And just continue this breathing pattern with that prayer, that request, that question, just allow it to be in this energy. And see if some wisdom, some insight doesn't come to you about your care, your concern, your question, as you continue to breathe in heart-mind coherence as we take this meditation into the silence. And we end this meditation simply by saying, thank you, God. Thank you for this heart-mind coherence. Thank you for knowing that we are one with the one mind that you are, that God is. And we are grateful. And for that we say, thank you, God.